Hey guys, and welcome back to the Fantasy Table brought to you by the Blue Stable. I'm your host, Luke Burkamp, and hopefully the video recording is working for me today. If not, you're seeing Austin's face again, but Austin is here tonight. So how you doing, Austin?
Pretty good. Nothing wrong with seeing my face for a full hour. That's all I got to say.
Hey, if it worked out last week, we got more views than we ever had before. So if that's how it works, then so be it, I guess. But we went over free agency last week, the whole free agency frenzy on all the signings. And this week we're going over the trades. We didn't want to do them together because there's just so much. It's going to be so packed. It probably would have been like a 2-hour show. So we wanted to split it half and half, hour about each way. So today we're going to go over the trades. We're also going to go over the new signings that's happened since the past week and a little bit of news, but not really a whole lot of news. But first, before we get started, I just want to let everybody know this weekend on Sunday, me and Austin are going to do Twitter Spaces at the Fantasy Table. Our Twitters are over here at the Austin Isaac, at Luke Burkamp, and at the Fantasy Table. So go follow us on there. We're going to do Fantasy Football Spaces on Twitter there. It'll be Sunday evening. My guess it'll probably be around 7 Eastern time, but it's not set in stone yet. We'll give an update as soon as we get that figured out. But anyway, we'll just go ahead and get right in. Starting with the news, the Chiefs have inquired for Laviska Shenault with the Jags, which good for Laviska if he can get out of Jacksonville, because Trevor Lawrence, for some reason, did not want to use him. Like, who was it? Tavon Austin and them guys were getting targets over Laviska last year. Just mind-blowing to me.
Didn't make any sense to me either.
Yeah, Laviska, he showed a lot of like promise early on in the season, and then all of a sudden he just kind of disappeared.
Probably was one of the most talented receivers in that room at the time. And
he might have been the most, actually, with DJ Chark out. San Francisco is holding on to Jimmy G for dear life for some reason. I don't know why they won't just, at this point, just release him. But I guess they already ate some of the cap for the guaranteed contract part. But yeah, they said they have gotten like no offers, I guess, is what I remember from the GM meeting. Yeah, they had like received no offers, which I can't say I'm surprised because Jimmy G's getting the shoulder surgery and everything. But I'm curious now, if they do end up keeping Jimmy G, are they going to have to start him over Trey Lance, or are they just going to start Trey Lance because they drafted him so high? Marlon Mack visited the Texans. There's the rumor that he may be taking a prove it deal with him this year. Marlon Mack's a pretty good running back. Like we saw it at the Colts. Me and Austin firsthand. He's a good running back. He did have the unfortunate Achilles, which usually does not work out well for running backs, but Donta Foreman came back from it. Cam Akers came back from it, which Cam Akers didn't really look great, but he came back really quickly. So
he came back way too early. So that's kind of an excuse.
Yeah, he tore it in preseason and he came back week 18 there. So it's just like that's almost too quick. But I mean, it worked out. He still looked like he had speed and everything. So hopefully Mack can get somewhere where he can have a prove it year. And if so, the Texans would be a perfect spot for him. But I also think the Texans could be drafting a running back in like the early round 2 or something.
It wouldn't surprise me if the Texans drafted one, but if Marlon Mack does go there, they really don't have an RB1. And everybody says that maybe Marlon Mack was carried by the Colts offensive line, which might be true, but his vision, vision isn't really something you can control with an offensive line. And his vision was probably up there in the top of the league when he was starting for Indy.
Yeah, his vision was like crazy. Like he's not the most talented running back, but because of that vision, it got him to 1,000 yards. So
he was hitting holes nobody else was seeing. So
yeah, he was hitting holes that Trent Richardson would never be able to see. He can't see the wide open ones the way it is. But this one really surprised me. But Darius Geis is looking for a potential return to the NFL. I don't know if any team will even bother taking a prove it deal with him. I don't know what team would want to sign him, but we'll just see how that goes. Just something to keep an eye on. Now for free agency, these are all the signings that's happened within like the past week. And number one for me, this is probably my top one to talk about, is Ronald Jones to the Chiefs. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, he has just been a disappointment as a first-round pick. He really has not shown a whole lot. And since the Chiefs lost Tyreek Hill, Ronald Jones is kind of like an explosive guy. Like, you're either getting like 3 yards out of him or you're getting a 56-yard touchdown. Like, it's one or the other with him. But he does have that explosiveness to him. So I think that they're going to probably use him in the running game quite a bit. He is just a power running back, so he wouldn't be on there on third downs or obvious passing downs. But there's a chance that he could actually be something here in Kansas City. I know I tweeted something out on the Fantasy Tables Twitter a few days ago, but Ronald Jones is still like crazy young. Let me check his exact age to make sure. But yeah, he's 24, which is young for a running back. Najee Harris, like, he's going into his second year and he's 24. Ronald Jones already went through his whole rookie contract and he's just now turning 24. So he's still young. Chiefs offense is a hell of a good offense to be in to get that untapped potential. So we'll see what happens there.
Yeah, Ronald Jones, he's a pretty good running back. Very talented, I think. I wouldn't say explosive as much as I would say big playability.
That's probably the better way to say it. Yeah,
he definitely has that in him. He is talented, but he's not, like one of the most talented running backs in the league. But the Chiefs also have a very good offensive line. Clyde Edwards-Helaire has been not necessarily a bust, but just hasn't been what everybody expected him to be. Aside from me, I really didn't expect him to amount to anything. You can't just take a guy because he fits your system and expect him to work out. But yeah, I mean, Ronald Jones in that Kansas City offense would be very interesting, especially if they start running the ball more.
Yeah, and they almost might have to with them losing Tyreek Hill. So
yeah,
we'll see. But I don't know where he's going to be going in drafts this year, but he might be a potential sleeper pick for you, like in the later rounds, like in a 12th round, maybe. Just take Ronald Jones for the upside. Hard to. Next up, Jeff Wilson is going back to San Francisco. I look at this as a positive for Elijah Mitchell. They could have went out and got like a Melvin Gordon to be like a 1A, 1B type roles in Shanahan's run first offense, but they just get Jeff Wilson back, probably just be the backup since Raheem Mostert's out. So I see this as a positive for Elijah Mitchell. Jeff Wilson, not much unless Elijah Mitchell gets hurt.
Yeah, Elijah Mitchell obviously is the RB1 in that system at this point. Everybody kind of expected it to be Trey Sermon to take that role over Mostert and even Jeff Wilson. Trey Sermon kind of had like an on and off year. Shanahan really didn't seem to like to use him very much, which was weird because he's a very good running back still. And I'm not just saying that because he went to Ohio State, but he's still very good. Elijah Mitchell, very, very good. But at the end of the day, Jeff Wilson's probably that RB2, RB3. So he's really not a major factor, but he is back. So, I mean, if they get another situation where every single running back on their roster gets injured, like they did last year multiple times.
It seems like they go through that every year, honestly.
Yeah, I know. I mean, he may be there.
Yeah, no, Trey Sermon was a weird one because like week one, him and Brandon Ayuk were like both like inactive. Well, Ayuk wasn't inactive, but he wasn't targeted like once. They had like this, I guess they broke protocol or something like that. And that just pissed Shanahan off. So they were in the doghouse for like the whole season. So it was a weird situation. So, but Elijah Mitchell's the guy now. Moving on, Robert Tonyan is back with the Packers. Tonyan is a weird one because now that Davonte Adams isn't there, he's probably going to be a bigger part of the offense. But I really think the Packers are going to have to go wide receiver in the draft. Early in the draft, hopefully this time around, and not getting another backup quarterback. So we'll see where they go for a wide receiver. Maybe they sign Jarvis Landry or something like that as well. But Tonyan is kind of interesting to me now that Davonte Adams is in Las Vegas. But he's kind of showed last year that 2020 season might have been a fluke.
Yeah, it almost seems like they kind of have to go wide receiver in the draft this year. As much as they may not want to for whatever reason, they don't have anybody anymore. They don't have Davonte Adams, who is a top 2 wide receiver at the absolute lowest in the league. They don't have Marquez Valdez-Scantling, who's a pretty solid deep threat. Alan Lazard is their wide receiver 1, I think.
Yep.
And then outside of Alan Lazard, they have Amari Rogers.
Randall Cobb.
Yeah, they got nobody's out wide receiver. They kind of have to go receiver in the draft at least once or twice. Robert Tonyan is probably going to be that top receiving threat for now, which is saying a lot, but it's kind of a wait and see kind of thing. But if they go wide receiver in the draft, Robert Tonyan pretty much means nothing at that point.
Yeah, the Packers wide receiver 3 right now is Jawan Winfrey. Never heard of the name before, but yeah,
that guy,
that one guy. And speaking of the wide receivers there in Green Bay, Marquez Valdez-Scantling did go to the Chiefs as a Tyreek Hill replacement, I guess. Can't replace Tyreek Hill, but they got another high-speed guy. He's really quick. He's not the same quick as what Tyreek Hill is because Tyreek Hill can just be fast anywhere he goes, but Marquez is more of a straight line speed guy. Well, I still think they could go wide receiver in the draft. This may be it for the Chiefs for wide receiver. Like, I could also see them not taking one just because they also have Juju as well. But if I'm them, I feel like you got to take a young receiver and try to like a high potential young receiver there in the draft, especially in this draft, to pair up with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, it's a pretty deep draft class for receivers. I'd be surprised if they didn't take one. Juju and Marquez Valdez-Scantling aren't exactly wide receiver 1s anymore. MVS was never a wide receiver 1, but Juju isn't exactly a wide receiver 1 anymore. So it would be surprising if they didn't take one. But I guess at the same time, it also wouldn't surprise me if they did take one. But it's kind of up in the air at this point. Kind of lost my train of thought there. I have no idea what I'm saying at this point.
I gotta say, because like the Chiefs, like they have Juju, they have McCole Hardman, and they got Marquez Valdez-Scantling, and still Travis Kelce.
That's kind of where I was going.
Yeah, so it's like it's not like it's a bad wide receiver room. Like there's worse in the NFL. Like just look at the Falcons. But so like they don't necessarily have to take one. But I mean, as Patrick Mahomes, why don't you give him like someone like to replace Tyreek Hill?
At the same time, Patrick Mahomes can make anybody look good too. So
true. Yeah,
they're not going to spend a first round pick on a receiver. That's almost guaranteed. They may not even spend a second on a receiver, but like a round 3, maybe a day 3 receiver with upside, I could see it for sure.
Yeah, that's true. I know a lot of people are like pairing like Jameson Williams to the Chiefs or the Packers. So we'll see where those landing spots end up being. We'll probably talk rookies in the coming weeks before the draft. So we'll save that for another date. But next up, we got Jacoby Brissett to the Browns. Now this is actually sneaky, has sneaky fantasy implications because I do think that Deshaun Watson is going to be suspended at least part of this next season. Whether it's 4 games, whether it's 6 games, I don't think they would go a whole season. I doubt at this point that it would be a full season, but I do think that for part of the season that Deshaun Watson will be suspended. So Jacoby Brissett will be the starter because there's no way they're holding on to Baker Mayfield whenever they signed Jacoby and traded for Deshaun. So Jacoby would be the starter for the time being. And he has Amari Cooper there. He's got Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, David Njoku. So he's got talent around him. While I don't really think he'd be a fantasy quarterback that you would want to start, he would be an option.
Yeah, I think Jacoby Brissett is going to be more of a waiver wire kind of guy. Deshaun Watson is, it's not a guarantee that he's going to be suspended, but that's kind of the main thing right now is everybody's assuming he is going to be suspended. I've been seeing it for as many as 10 games, maybe. So Jacoby Brissett could be the starter for a while. Baker Mayfield is pretty much gone. Baker Mayfield's been gone for a week, just don't know where yet. But Jacoby Brissett, he's a solid quarterback. He looks solid in Miami in the games that he started in Miami. So, I mean, if they can get a receiver or two in Cleveland, he could be a solid waiver wire pickup.
Yeah, he's a top tier backup for sure. I mean, he was good for the Colts whenever we had him for a bit until he got hurt after the Kansas City game. But all in all, high-end backup. He'll probably be, like Austin said, one of those guys you play the matchups on with your waiver wire. And, yeah. Next up, Auden Tate and Kadarius Hodge went to the Falcons. The Falcons are a mess. I know I tweeted this out, but you look at the Texans last year, would you rather take the Texans last year or would you take the Falcons this year?
I would absolutely take the Texans last year, 110%.
Because you had Brandon Cooks.
Yeah.
The running backs were a whole mess. You got David Johnson and all them guys, Rex Burkhead. Tight end, Brevin Jordan wasn't too bad.
Yeah.
Davis Mills was a surprise, honestly.
Yeah, Davis Mills was very good. So, I mean, yeah, I would definitely – not to say Mariota is going to be bad this year. I think he can still start in this league, but obviously he's getting up there in age at this point, so his time is kind of gone. So he's really just a bridge at this point. But they don't really have anything going for them. Their wide receiver one is Frank Darby, who has one career reception to his name. Unless they make Auden Tate the wide receiver one, and which case
I think Auden Tate might be the wide receiver one. He's listed in depth chart as wide receiver one right now. So.
God. I mean, that's insane because he was wide receiver 4 last year in Cincinnati. So I mean, going from that to wide receiver 1, just not great for that offense.
He has about 120 targets in his career, not catches, targets. So let's see, 50. He has about 60 catches.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he's a really tall guy.
6'5".
Yeah, 6'5". I liked him a lot at Florida State, but I mean, he hasn't really done too much in the league to prove anything, especially to prove that he should be a wide receiver 1.
Yeah, Destin, he said there could be some like late round picks on the Falcons offense might go later than what they should. He said fantasy sleepers, as he called them, which Cordarrelle Patterson might be. I feel like Cordarrelle Patterson could be sneaky good this year. Like he was good last year. I don't think he's going to be as good as he was last year with Matt Ryan, but I still think there's a chance that he could be decent. Kyle Pitts, I thought he was going to break tight end records this year with Matt Ryan, but I don't think that's going to be the case with Mariota. He's still do what?
I was going to say Kyle Pitts is kind of being wasted in that offense until they get a quarterback.
Yeah. You got, oh gosh, I don't even know how to say his name, but Zacchaeus Lamedy. Zacchaeus. He's there. So
yeah,
he
sure is there.
Yeah, he is definitely there. But they got a lot of names that you probably don't know if you're like just kind of casually watching football. But take them at your own risk is what I'll say for that offense.
Don't take them at all. I mean,
yeah, if I had to pick, I'm probably not taking him at all. Maybe I would take Cordarrelle Patterson as like a flex.
yeah.
But
I feel like a mobile quarterback with Cordarrelle Patterson could open up some option offense. Fun, but outside of that, I mean, until we can see these guys in action, or until they get some rookies in here, it's not really worth it.
Yeah, no. And then the final signing that we're going to talk about is Trequan Smith back to the Saints. So this next year for Jameis Winston is going to have Michael Thomas and Trequan Smith back at wide receiver. Yeah, not really a huge signing for me because Jameis really isn't the same Jameis as he was in Tampa Bay. But yeah, we'll see. I don't know if the Saints would go for another receiver now, signing Trequan, especially with the cap mess that they're in. I know they've been linked to like other people, and I know that like Tyrann Mathieu teasing about going there in New Orleans as well. So I don't think they can sign a guy like Jarvis Landry, even though that might be a fit for him. But yeah, if they're getting another quarterback or getting another wide receiver, it'd be through the draft.
Yeah, if there's another wide receiver going to New Orleans, it has to be a rookie. There's really nobody else that would fit in there, or that they would even have the money for to begin with.
Yeah, New Orleans is just a mess with all the cap problems they've created.
Yeah.
Anyways, for what everyone is here for, let's go over the trades that have been going on. There's like, to me, this is like the NBA trade deadline. There was just so many trades. Like it was nuts. And this might be the new norm for the NFL. Like I could see it being where stars are now like having the control of, hey, I want out. I think that we could just be getting stars on the move all the time now. So,
I mean, all of the ones we're about to talk about they were somewhat predictable, especially like Desean Watson, Matt Ryan, even maybe Carson Wentz, obviously. But some of these were just like out of left field. Like, we'll get to them.
Yeah, we'll get to them as we go along. But yeah, there's a lot that was just like, wow. Yeah. Russell Wilson, that was the first major trade. We talked about it a few weeks ago already. If you want to see the full detailed explanation, you can go back to that video. It should be Russell Wilson in the thumbnail, so don't have to worry. But Russell Wilson, in short note, good for the whole Broncos offense, bad for the whole Seahawks offense. Albert O, sleeper tight end, and that's pretty much what we talked about in a nutshell.
Really just reiterating everything we've already said, but Albert O was good last year, so why wouldn't he be good with a better quarterback this year?
Very good quarterback.
Yeah. So, I mean, all the receivers, their value goes up. All the running backs, their value goes up. Javonte Williams as a receiving back, his value goes up. I mean, Russell Wilson elevates that offense.
I got to say, one note I wanted to add on Javonte Williams is like his hype was already like building up with Melvin Gordon leaving, but his hype might be even more because like Russell Wilson's there. Like you get a better quarterback in an offense that creates more scoring opportunities, which means more rushing touchdowns for Javonte. And like you said, he does do receiving work as well. Mm-hmm. So more potential receiving touchdowns for Javonte. So touchdowns are almost key to fantasy football. And if he's getting more scoring opportunities, that means that his value is just going up. I could see him being as a top 5 running back this year, honestly. Yeah. He's got that potential. So next trade was Carson Wentz to the Commanders. This one, the whole Colts fan base half of the Colts fan base saw coming. Half thought we were going to keep him. But either way, he is now a Commander. He was traded for a mix of picks, which was great by Chris Ballard that he got that off. But anyway, the impact for Washington, Gibson, I know I tweeted this out on my personal account. This kind of hurts for Gibson because like Jonathan Taylor was targeted like, I forget what the number was, but it was like 8 times or 5 times in the 8 times in the last 5 games, which is not good for a running back, especially a guy like Gibson that you do kind of count on a few targets every game. Terry McLaurin, I think Terry will probably be around the same as what he has been. I could see him having a very similar season to what he did last year as Michael Pittman had last year. Because he is that wide receiver one, he's going to be the guy that Carson probably hyper targets and everything. Curtis Samuel, if he stays healthy, he could be a solid wide receiver option for him, but I don't know if he'd be a real fantasy option. And Logan Thomas, he's more of, I think that this helps him, honestly, because no offense to, Heineke? No offense to Heineke, but he wasn't really the best quarterback. Like Carson Wentz is an upgrade over Heineke for sure. So I do think that this is better for Logan Thomas. Curtis Samuel, like I said, probably not really that fantasy relevant, but maybe a guy you want to take a shot on, and so on.
Yeah, I think Wentz is definitely an upgrade over Heineke. He wasn't bad last year with Indy. I think his major issue was that he tried to play too much hero ball outside of the off-field stuff, but he tried to play too much hero ball. That continuously, screwed him up. So
it was just an inconsistency was what really got him.
One of my friends showed me a DVOA chart of him, and it's literally just a roller coaster up and down the entire season. So, I mean, it absolutely, he just was inconsistent. If he could have just stayed on that up side, maybe they could have figured out the whole off-field stuff, because he probably would have been, a top 7, top 8 quarterback. I think he was borderline top 10 last year still, despite, the media constantly bashing him for every little mistake that he made. But
just because his name was Carson Wentz is the reason why a lot of people are bashing him.
Yeah, pretty much. That's basically what it came down to. Any mistake that he would make, it just got picked apart by the media, and then everybody else, all the casuals, would eat up what the media was saying. That's just Carson Wentz. I mean, it is what it was. It was what it was. But he's in Washington now. He's with the Commanders. That's going to take some getting used to say the Commanders. But Gibbs' season, I feel like, got ruined as soon as J.D. McKissic went back. That sucks for Antonio Gibson. He could be a top 5, top 10 running back very, very easily if he would just get his chance.
Well, it's funny because Gibson, he was a running back 1. So running back 1 for me is running back number 1 overall to running back 12. And he was a running back 1, both his rookie and last year. But the thing is that he could be a top 1 if J.D. McKissic would just go away. And he did. He signed to the Bills, but he went back.
It mostly came down to, it wasn't even just yards. It mostly came down to him hawking his touchdowns too. And that's just killer for fantasy. Terry McLaurin, I really feel like you said Terry would probably do about as good as Michael Pittman did. I think Carson Wentz can elevate Terry McLaurin. I think Terry is probably on the verge of his best season yet. Mostly because Carson Wentz likes to throw that deep ball. Terry McLaurin is a pretty solid deep ball guy. Obviously that's not his forte, but he can go deep. And when he does, I mean, he takes the top off the defense. And I think if Carson Wentz and Terry, hook up on a couple of those, he could be really good. Curtis Samuel, unless you had something to say about that.
Well, the thing about Terry for me is I really like him as a wide receiver. I wish the Colts had him. But the thing is that for fantasy,
too.
Do what?
I'm sure he wished the Colts had him too.
I think so. For fantasy, he really like people overdraft him. I feel like in fantasy, his highest season has been wide receiver 20. That's just been his best season so far. I know his quarterback play hasn't been great, which is part of it.
That's his biggest excuse is that his quarterback play, because he himself is probably a top 10, 12 receiver as a receiver. It's not fantasy wise.
Right.
If he had better quarterback, I mean, imagine what he could do.
I gotta say this would be his chance to prove it. But like Michael Pittman last year was wide receiver 17 for fantasy. So I could see him being like, this probably would be his, like, well, I'm just saying, like, I could see him being like wide receiver 15, which would definitely be his best receiver season yet because he was wide receiver 20 as his best one. But I'm not expecting him to be like a top 10 fantasy wide receiver.
I doubt it'll come down to top 10. Michael Pittman, you said, was wide receiver 17 last year, but I do want to point out that he was like a top 8 receiver in fantasy for like a good 4-week stretch. Probably Carson Wentz's best 4 weeks of last year.
Yeah, up until like it was like the second Titans game.
Yeah,
that he started like going down.
Yeah. So I mean, I feel like Terry, like I said, his quarterback situation hasn't been the greatest, and that's putting it nicely. But this is obviously the best quarterback situation that he's had so far. At the same time, this still isn't a great quarterback situation unless Carson Wentz shows some sort of consistency, which we've been saying for 3+ years now, is that he needs to be more consistent. But if he could show more consistency, this could be his year for sure.
Take the layups.
Yeah, just absolutely. I mean, the layups would be Curtis Samuel and Logan Thomas too. These guys underneath more. Curtis Samuel's kind of that guy, the crosser route kind of guy. Even just like the jet sweep, the hand the ball off to him. He very good H-back ability. He had 1,000 scrimmage yards in his last season in Carolina. So, I mean, he was injured pretty much all last year. I think he could have been a pretty solid fantasy receiver, kind of like a Cordero Patterson if they had any sort of offense going and Curtis Samuel wasn't hurt. But, with Gibson and J.D. McKissick and Terry McLaurin, I don't really see Curtis Samuel ever getting to that point.
I got to say, last offseason, I actually picked up Curtis Samuel in my Dynasty League, and I held on to him for dear life because I thought, this guy could be something. And then he hurt his groin, and then he played one game, and then he got hurt again. And then I had to drop him after.
In our Blue Stable League last year, I had him on my roster. I drafted him even and kept him there until week 8. And I was like, I can't do it anymore.
I can't do it. Now, before we keep going on this rant, moving on, impact for Indy. I'll actually save this for later because we're going to talk about the Matt Ryan trade as well. And we can talk more about that at that point. So we'll move on to the Desean Watson to the Browns. He's not facing criminal charges, so he's not facing any real legal issue, which is why he ended up getting traded in the first place. So he is on the Browns, but like we said, he'll probably get suspended for part of this season. But fantasy impact for the Browns, you got Kareem Hunt there, Chubb, Cooper. I don't know why I have Brown there, and Njoku. Maybe Austin will finally get to see Njoku get some targets.
I've been waiting for it his entire career. So,
but yeah, all in all, I think this is a huge win for that whole offense. Like we said with Russell Wilson, this is creating more scoring opportunities for the Browns, which means more scoring opportunities for guys like Chubb and Hunt and Cooper and Njoku.
Yeah, it's going to really depend on when he ends up playing again. But, I mean, everybody gets elevated, similar to that Russell Wilson trade. Everybody gets elevated in that offense. This is the best quarterback they have seen. Any single player on this entire offense, this is probably the best quarterback they have seen, regardless of his off the field situation that he has going on or had going on or whatever. Deshaun Watson's still a top. Honestly, in my opinion, Deshaun Watson is a top 5 or 6 quarterback. He has that talent. He has that level of mixture of the run and pass game where you don't know what he's going to do. You also don't know what he's going to do off the field. That's just Deshaun Watson. But at the end of the day, he's still a really good quarterback. And there's not a single player on this team who's probably seen a better quarterback than Deshaun Watson so far. So it just elevates everybody.
Yeah. So fantasy quarterback wise, Deshaun Watson's like really up there for me. Like there's like Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen for sure. I'm putting above him. But like Justin Herbert, would you take Justin Herbert or Deshaun Watson? I'd probably go Herbert.
Am I assuming Deshaun Watson's suspended?
Let's just say for the full season for both, just because like obviously if he's playing half the season, you're going to take
then obviously I would take Herbert. Am I taking him as a fantasy quarterback or am I
fantasy quarterback
in real life?
No, fantasy quarterback.
Oh, okay.
We're talking fantasy, so we'll do fantasy.
I was like that completely changes my answer in that case.
Yeah.
I probably still take Deshaun Watson, to be honest. I think he has the running upside still more so than Herbert does. Not that Herbert can't move, but I think Deshaun Watson does run a little more than Herbert does.
I gotta say, all in all, I think Josh Allen is probably the only quarterback you can for sure put above Deshaun in fantasy. Like even Mahomes, like especially now that Mahomes doesn't have Hill, I could see a strong argument for taking Deshaun Watson over Patrick Mahomes, which obviously I don't think people will because of the likely suspension.
Yeah.
But like,
and
like
I mean,
one more.
It really does come down to in fantasy, it's that pass and run combination that you really want. Honestly,
that's how Lamar Jackson like broke records.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's really not a better. Josh Allen obviously would rival that, but Deshaun Watson, we haven't seen what he can do with a real offense yet. Even in Houston, he hasn't had receivers like this. Even though it just comes down to Amari Cooper, but out of the backfield, Chubb and Hunt, David Njoku. I mean, he hasn't had a team like this ever. So, I mean, this even all those years he made the playoffs. So I think Deshaun Watson, when he actually starts playing again, whenever that may be, could be a top 3 fantasy quarterback at the very lowest, honestly. So, I mean, it's the movement outside the pocket, the movement inside the pocket, the passing, he's accurate. For the most part, he's accurate. I think he does have some accuracy issues sometimes. But, I mean, the weapons, I think if there is – he's got a really solid offensive line too, probably one of the best in the league. But I think there is no quarterback better in this league at escaping the sack than Deshaun Watson.
It's ridiculous. Like I'll never forget like this last year that he actually played for the Texans there, that like the Colts, they had him in their arms like multiple times, and he just still runs out and throws a touchdown or something.
Just a magician inside the pocket escaping that sack. It's crazy.
It is absolutely nuts. But yeah, honestly, the biggest winner in this trade is Deshaun Watson. He went to a very good team.
Yeah.
While we're talking about the Browns, we didn't talk on this guy earlier or on the shows earlier, but Amari Cooper is also on the Browns. We already talked about the impact for the Browns with Deshaun Watson. So what's the impact you see for the Cowboys?
So, I mean, honestly, obviously it elevates CeeDee Lamb. His fantasy value is going to skyrocket now. He is essentially the only receiver, especially with Gallup out for the beginning of the season. CeeDee Lamb's essentially the only receiver in that offense. Dalton Schultz, really good year last year. It's kind of a question of can he keep that up? I think he can. But it's still a question mark at the end of it. Dak, was kind of on and off last year, coming off of an injury, so he has somewhat of an excuse, but even towards the end of the season, kind of on and off. But I think at the very end of the day, it's the CeeDee Lamb show in Dallas.
Yeah, no, CeeDee was like a popular draft pick last year just because he was so young and like this Dallas offense was so explosive the year before Dak got hurt. Like all this stuff was just lining up that this would be the CD breakout year. Didn't really happen that way. He was still pretty good, but he wasn't like top 5 guy like a lot of people thought that he could be. But now it's basically him and Dalton Schultz to begin the season. So they're going to get a lot of work. Michael Gallup, he's going to be in there too, but this should help CD a lot. To me, it helps CD, it helps Dalton. It's not really a great thing for Dak. Dak went from having a stacked wide receiver room to now it's just about like 3 guys.
Yeah, 1, maybe 2, and then 3 at some point.
Yeah. So it hurt Dak, but it helped the other guys.
And I have been seeing like rumors and stuff that they're looking to get another wide receiver in the draft, which I think on one end, great for Dak, but on the other end, they have numerous holes on their defense that need to be filled before they're getting another receiver, which is the same issue when they got CeeDee Lamb. It was the same issue then. They had other holes, and they're like, oh, well, CeeDee Lamb's here. Let's just draft CeeDee Lamb. I mean, and he honestly, in my opinion, at the time, was the best wide receiver in that draft class. So I'm like, I mean, great for CeeDee, but what's the defense going to do now? Like, you're not making a playoff push if, you just have a great wide receiver core and nobody on defense.
I gotta say, no, like defensive line or
no defensive line, no corners, and don't tell me Trayvon Diggs. You have no corners, you have no safeties. Don't tell me Keanu Allen. You have no safeties. I mean, it's just they've got nothing. They've got DeMarcus Lawrence, and that's it.
I really love how they traded away Amari Cooper for financial reasons whenever they're paying Zeke like $25 million, even though Tony Pollard's the better running back at this point.
Yeah.
But if they do take a wide receiver in the draft, that'd be such a Cowboys thing to do.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's one of those things that I don't know, they never make sense. But yeah.
It's the reason they haven't won a Super Bowl in our lifetime. So
yeah, no kidding. Next up, we got Matt Ryan to the Colts. Favorite trade of the offseason for obvious reasons. But for the Falcons, this really hurts Kyle Pitts, and this really hurts Cordell Patterson and the Falcons wide receivers that we don't need to name because
we can't name them, to be honest.
We know them, but we don't want to name them.
Just talked about them. I forgot half of their names.
Right. I like I said before, I thought Pitts was going to be like a top 3 tight end this year, but now I still think he's going to be for sure top 10, maybe top 5, but that offense is just going to be awful this year.
Considering he is the only weapon in that offense right now, aside from Cordero Patterson, maybe depending on how they run the offense, if they run that more option style offense that I think Mariota can run, that college style with him and Cordero Patterson, then
that's
maybe
true.
Cordero Patterson's more of a threat.
Yeah.
But I don't really think Arthur Smith's a big college offense kind of guy.
Doesn't seem like it, no.
Not at all. So I think it may be the Pitts show in Atlanta. I mean, that's all that's there, really.
Yeah, he's the thing is that he's going to be double teamed a lot this year.
For
sure. Especially Calvin Ridley out. Like, this was his season to be it, but then Calvin Ridley gets suspended and Matt Ryan leaves. But moving on to the Colts side, Michael Pittman, Jonathan Taylor, Nyheim Hines. Nyheim Hines through the roof. They're going to use Nyheim Hines more in the offense, more as a slot receiver. He's probably going to be pretty similar to what he was with the Phillip Rivers season. I could see him being more like that than what he would be with Carson Wentz last year.
I was going to say, because I don't really think they used Hines in the receiving game. I know they used him a lot in the Rivers season, but I don't think they've used him in the receiving game as much as I feel like they're going to this year since like his rookie year. I remember his rookie year barely knowing who Nyheim Hines was. And there was a play, I want to say it was against the Texans, where Andrew Luck went up, threw a jump ball to Nyheim Hines on a corner, and Nyheim Hines mossed the corner. I don't know if you remember that.
I remember that now that you say it, yeah.
Yeah, that's the day I was like, this kid's going to be special. And I think he is still a really, really good running back, especially out of the backfield. especially with the ball in his hands. I mean, it's if they can get him involved in the passing game like they should be, like they should have been this all these years. I mean, he's going to be a special fantasy receiver.
I gotta say, for me, like if I had to describe Hines in one word, it would be playmaker because all he does is he makes plays. He's so explosive. He's so quick. He's so like just everything that you're wanting. But I know I put this on again on the fantasy table Twitter, but like Devonte Smith averaged 63 targets a year with Matt Ryan. That's including Freeman's rookie year whenever he had competition there as well. Tevin Coleman had 41 a year, excluding his rookie year whenever Freeman was still there and it was still pretty good. Cordero Patterson has 69 targets last year. So it's like he will be targeted if they use him in that offense more. So I see. Go ahead.
I think one of the things is that they stopped using him, at least Frank Reich did, because of the emergence of Jonathan Taylor. So he wanted Jonathan Taylor to get all these touches and then kind of
hot hand.
Just kind of forgot about Nyheim Hines. And then towards the end of last season, or I'm sorry, the 2020 season, that's when, Jonathan Taylor started, he had that 260, 250 yard game against Jacksonville in week 17. At that point, everybody had forgotten about Nyheim Hines, apparently including Frank Reich, because from the very beginning of the 2021 season, he hardly ever used him. And it was literally just Jonathan Taylor every single down. But I think this year changes now that they have a way to get him more involved in the passing game and let Jonathan Taylor take over the run game. But obviously you can still get Nyheim Hines involved in the run game too.
Yeah, Hines can be used in a lot of different ways. Like we said, they talked about like using him as slot wide receiver, but like he can also be used like jet sweeps and stuff like that. But yeah, last year was his career low in targets, career low in receptions, career low in receiving yards. So it was just all career lows for him. But I expect that to bounce back this year with Matt Ryan. Absolutely. As for the others, Taylor and Pittman, this is an uptick for both of them because we did not want Sam Ehlinger to be quarterback one. Otherwise, that would hurt both of them. Sorry, Josh, if you're watching this video. But
no, we're not sorry, Josh.
Yeah, sorry, not sorry. I'm totally fine with where we're at compared to where we were, as Jim Irsay says. But Pittman, I really like this for Pittman, honestly. Matt Ryan does very well getting the ball to his receivers. If Campbell can stay healthy, that'd be amazing. But I do like this for Pittman. I think that he could be top 15 wide receiver this year with
for
Matt
sure.
Ryan.
Carson Wentz last year was, upgrade for Pittman. And mostly because Carson Wentz throws those deep jump balls, which Michael Pittman has really emerged at being almost elite at. And that's not even like his full game, to be honest. But Matt Ryan is really, despite his age, despite what people may think, and I'm one of those people. Like at first, before I started looking more into Matt Ryan, I didn't watch a lot of Falcons games last year because I don't think even Falcons fans watched a lot of Falcons games. But looking more into Matt Ryan as he was getting rumored to go to the Colts, he still got the ability to throw the deep ball. Like that throw power is still there. That arm strength is still there, which is crazy because he's pushing 40 at this point. So I think, Michael Pittman's value, even just underneath things, the deep balls, I mean, everything. Michael Pittman's value is going to skyrocket because he was good with Carson Wentz. Matt Ryan's an upgrade from Carson Wentz. It's the transitive property here. So, I mean, if he's good with Carson Wentz, Matt Ryan's better than Carson Wentz. Michael Pittman's going to be better this year. That's just what one have to think.
Well, it's like Pittman was good last year with like the deep balls, like you said. But the thing is that he lost a lot because they had defensive pass interferences. So he lost a lot of points on stuff like that. Even though he got the Colts to move up because of the pass interferences, he doesn't get fantasy points for those catches.
True. That's very true.
Missed catches. So with Matt Ryan, Matt Ryan's going to be more accurate. Yeah. I know, like you're talking about how Matt Ryan is still good. I just always remember this tweet. Michael was the first one that I know of that was on the Matt Ryan train. But he posted a the picture of Will Smith slapping Chris Rock, and he said Matt Ryan still sucks, and it was that slap picture, which I thought was great because Matt Ryan is still good. Like he still can play at a high level. It just didn't show because the Falcons were a bad team last year, so they didn't show much of their games, so much of those highlights. But Cordell Patterson, you saw him being really good. So it's like he still is a good quarterback.
Yeah. And this is one of the best offenses he's been in probably since that Super Bowl year, that MVP year that he was in. Even 2018, I just saw that he threw. I don't know why it just got brushed under the table by literally everybody, but Matt Ryan in 2018 had I think 5,000 yards and like 40 touchdowns or something like that to like 7 interceptions and didn't even make the Pro Bowl. Like did nobody care? Where was everybody during that season? That was insane to me.
Yeah, no, he let's see, 2018, it was 4,924. So basically, and 35 touchdowns, which is really good.
A 5-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, and just nobody cared. Not a Pro Bowl. A Pro Bowl at the very least is probably what he should have gotten there. But that's insane because I was already towards the downfall of Julio. Obviously, Calvin Ridley was pretty much skyrocketing at that point. Yeah. But he's still good. He still got it, and I think, like you just said, Carson Wentz was underthrowing a lot of those deep balls to Michael Pittman, which in turn, Michael Pittman became somehow very good at drawing defensive pass interference.
Very good.
A trait that he had he was forced to learn, basically. Became very good at it. So Matt Ryan has that throw power still. If he can keep that accuracy up, especially this year, Michael Pittman can out of nowhere take the top off of the defense, which is crazy to me.
Yeah, no, I can see big things. Colts will probably go in the draft for another receiver. I know they like multiple receivers in this draft, so I do think that they will take someone. Not necessarily round 2, because I know a lot of people want to point round 2, that number 42 pick for that. But I do think that they may wait just because this is a deep wide receiver class and they got needs elsewhere.
I would still like to see at least one free agent wide receiver come in too, because as of right now, if I'm not mistaken, it's literally just Pittman, Campbell, and Doolin on the roster. And I don't think there's any others except for Strawn.
You got Strawn.
Yeah. Outside of that, that's not really a fantastic wide receiver core.
Kiki QT.
Oh, yeah, right.
Desmond Patton.
Oh, Patton did have a pretty solid season last year.
Yeah.
But he's that bottom of the roster kind of guy. That guy that, if you have injuries, he can step in and be good. But he's definitely not that starter caliber. And if Campbell gets hurt, what are you left with?
Right. Yeah, no, they definitely need to get more depth there. They need to upgrade at the position. Hopefully they get a wide receiver in the draft, like a round 2, round 3 guy.
They may even double dip a wide receiver in the draft. If they don't get a free agent, which I would love for them to get, like a Jarvis Landry, obviously who wouldn't, but that's pretty much all that's left at that point. But I would love for them to double dip to a wide receiver in the draft. It's a very deep wide receiver class.
Right. Moving on, talking about wide receivers, we're moving on to the wide receivers that got traded. This one was just a bomb whenever I got this notification, but Davonte Adams goes to the Raiders. Impact for the Packers. I think this is just, it goes down for everybody on the Packers end except for the wide receiver, Alan Lazard. He's like the only guy there now, and Robert Tonyan. But like Aaron Jones, I think this is almost a down tick for him, which I know doesn't sound like it makes sense at first because he's a running back. Devonte was a wide receiver. But Devonte just opened up so much of that offense because, to me, he was the best wide receiver in football. I'd put him there personally, but he just opened up so much of the offense for like Aaron Jones to get space and stuff like that because he commanded like double teams and the defense had to focus on him mainly. But this hurts Aaron Rodgers. Hopefully they actually draft a first-round wide receiver for him, but who knows? Hard saying.
with how bad that wide receiver room is. I feel like they have 2 first-round picks now, don't they? They already had their own.
Yeah, I think. Do they have the back-to-back, or is it? I know the Chiefs have back-to-back, but Packers they have like 2 in like the 20s.
Yeah, you may be right. So I feel like maybe not double dip in the first round, but double dip maybe first round and then go second round right after. But I mean, their wide receiver core is terrible now. Davonte Adams getting traded to the Raiders, like you said, huge shock. I kind of thought that once they franchise tagged him, he was there. I thought he was getting franchise tagged. I was okay with it because Rodgers was there. I didn't think Rodgers would go back knowing Davonte Adams was going to get moved. So, I mean, this was a huge shock to a lot of people. But him in that Raiders offense is going to be fantastic. The Packers offense is now just nothing. Outside of the running game, obviously Aaron Rodgers himself elevates receivers, but at the same time, they definitely need to get somebody.
Like they can't just have like nobody's out there. They have to have some sort of actual receiving weapons out there for him to elevate. But yeah, like you said, the Raiders. We'll just move on to the Raiders side. The impact for like Renfrow, Carr, and Waller. I actually don't mind this for Renfrow because Renfrow was the main target of that offense for most of last year. While yes, he might not see the upside that he did without Adams. Adams is going to command a lot of attention. Waller is going to command a lot of attention. That could leave Renfrow open for a lot of targets in the middle there. I actually kind of like it for Renfrow. Adams, I do like the fit. I still think he's going to be a top 10 receiver this year. He's not going to have the ceiling. He's not going to be I don't think he'll be the number 1 receiver like he was in Green Bay. But I think this almost kind of helps everybody in Las Vegas. It's just a slight downtick for Adams himself.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Renfrow, his stock doesn't necessarily drop. I don't really think it rises either, but I don't think it drops. Those targets are obviously going to go down because you have a top, like I said before, a top 2 receiver in the league on your team now. But at the same time, he will be, yes, commanding that attention. Waller will be commanding that attention because he's a top 3 tight end in the league. So, I mean, you got 2 top receiving threats, and then you got Hunter Renfrow. Obviously, those 2 top receiving threats are still going to get attention, both from the defense and from the quarterback. So it really shouldn't matter either way. But, Hunter Renfrow is going to get open a lot more if these other 2 guys are getting double teamed for most of the game.
Yeah, no, like Renfrow is probably one of the better slot receivers in the game. So yeah, I like this for him. I don't think it's necessarily an upgrade because he was the wide receiver 11 in fantasy last year. I don't think he's going to get above that this year with Devonte there and Darren Waller getting back healthier.
I could see him somewhere around that for this year.
Yeah, I would say still, like with everybody there, I still think you'd be like a top 24. I'll say that top 24 option yet. Like Derek Carr is not a bad quarterback by any means. Like he can still spread the ball around to everybody. The next wide receiver that we're going to talk about is another one that just kind of happened like that. All of a sudden we got the tweets that, Tyreek Hill and the Chiefs aren't seeing eye to eye in an extension. And all of a sudden they let him look for a trade. It's the Dolphins and Jets. And he went to the Dolphins all in a matter of like a half hour. This all happened.
One thing after another. I woke up seeing, Tyreek Hill and aren't seeing eye to eye. And I was like, he'll get it worked out. He did not get it worked out.
Yeah, I'm amazed. Because like you can't replace Tyreek Hill. Like, no. Yeah, Davonte Adams is a great wide receiver, but he's not a Tyreek Hill. Like Tyreek Hill is a 1-of-1 guy. Like it's like Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel is a 1-of-1 guy. Like it's just guys like that are just like they're their own person, and you can't replace that in offense.
And it's not necessarily a talent thing as much as it is a skill set thing. Like nobody has in my opinion, Tyreek Hill is maybe the 5th best wide receiver in the league. I would put him that low, and I know a lot of people have him like top 3, but I think maybe 5 or 6 is where I have him, and that's solely because he only does like one thing, but he does that one thing to an elite level to the point where nobody in the league can touch him, literally, because he's moving so fast.
Yeah,
so it is, for fantasy wise, he's constantly behind the defense. He's constantly getting open because nobody can keep up with him.
Yeah, no, like he's probably one of the quickest people we have ever saw on a football field. There's a reason why he's called the cheetah. Like, yeah, he is literally a cheetah. But yeah, so Patrick Mahomes lost his best receiving weapon. To me, this definitely ends the debate between Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen. I have Josh Allen above Patrick Mahomes, no questions asked.
Fantasy
wise, yes, fantasy wise. If I could have him on the Colts, I'd take him on the Colts. No questions. But yeah, fantasy wise, I have Josh Allen just because of the rushing upside. He's got Stephon Diggs yet. This hurts Patrick Mahomes. I know I posted like a thing on Twitter that kind of showed my initial thoughts on the whole trade. But like Juju, I personally think he stays the same, because Juju was really good that one year because he was the number 2 option, and everybody was focusing on Antonio Brown because that's when Antonio Brown was at his peak. Juju was getting into things, and Juju took advantage of his role. He was going to be great as a number 2 here. But with Tyreek Hill leaving, yes, that opens up more targets for Juju. But the thing is that defenses are going to be paying more attention to him. More cornerbacks ones are going to be on Juju. So while that's why, to me, it's more of an even split for him, because while yes, the targets go up, that means more attention is going to go up on him as well, which is where he has struggled so far. But he is 25 years old as well, so he's still young. I know it's a 1-year deal as well. Maybe they add more depending on how the season goes. But to me, it's even for Juju. But otherwise, it's down for everybody else except for Tua. Tua is the biggest winner out of all this.
Yeah, for sure. Tua definitely wins. He's got loads of talent now on his offense. Juju is probably going to stay the same because Kelsey is still a top receiving threat in the entire league, not just on the Chiefs. He's the top receiving threat in the league. He's finished top 10 in receiving yards the last like 3 years. So I mean, and Patrick Mahomes himself elevates everybody. Juju is still going to be a guy that's not going to be the main attention getter in Kansas City because of Travis Kelce. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, this could be good for him too, because he'll get open a little more, especially if teams are looking more at Juju and Travis Kelce, or just Travis Kelce in general.
As long as MVS can catch, though, that's the thing.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue. But yeah, I mean, I know we've said this for the last few quarterbacks. I mean, Desean Watson, Aaron Rodgers, Russell Wilson, Patrick Mahomes, more so than pretty much anybody, is a guy that elevates his receiving talent. So, it'll be interesting to see what he does here. Mecole Hardman still on the roster, so they've got tons of speed still. But I think Tua definitely wins more so than anybody else does, because now Tua has all of the talent in the world to do this. He's got no excuses at this point. He's got a decent running game. He's got weapons galore in Miami. So I think he absolutely wins this.
Yeah, next week I think that we're going to try to do a winners and losers show. I feel like that'd be a good show to do, talk about winners and losers of the offseason so far. And Tua has got to be probably the top of the list.
Yeah,
like you get Chase Edmonds in there, you get Terron Armstead, Tyreek Hill, Cedric Wilson. To me, like some of the losers from this, we'll just go back to this trade in particular, but like Jalen Waddle, I was so hyped for Jalen Waddle. While this does hurt him for the now, his long-term potential is still pretty good. It's not the same ceiling as what it was at, but the search Waddle, this
the way
really
I see it for Waddle is that it's more so him and Tyreek have that similar skill set.
Yeah.
They've got that speed.
They got the speed.
Yeah. Waddle, I think, is a bit more polished as a route runner than Tyreek Hill is. But Tyreek Hill obviously is a little faster than Waddle is, so it kind of balances out. But I think it's literally just going to be a competition of who can get behind the defense first. And whoever does that, Tua just needs to air it out to them, and that's it. It's over.
Man, the Dolphins offense is just going to be like a track meet at this point.
Yeah,
like Gesicki as well. Gesicki is a fast tight end. Like
I would say Gesicki's probably one of the fastest tight ends in the league. If I would say one, I don't think he's the fastest tight end. Obviously, Kyle Pitts probably has that.
Pitts is probably the fastest. But.
Yeah, but Gesicki's definitely probably a top 5 fastest tight end in the league.
Yeah,
but if you want to talk about losers of this trade, it's got to be Cedric Wilson for me. It just has to.
Cedric Wilson went from being into a crowded wide receiver room to being in a crowded wide receiver room.
Yeah, he absolutely. I mean, he went into this Dolphins offense, and I think they signed him with the intention of this guy's going to get some serious looks this year, and then
he was probably going to be starting slot receiver, I would say.
Yeah, I think he probably would have been starting. And until Tyreek Hill became available. Obviously, if Tyreek Hill says, I want to go to Miami, you can't really pass that up. So, I mean, it would be interesting if they trade Devonte Parker, which I think is still on the table, even though they're kind of like iffy about it right now. If they trade Devonte Parker, fingers crossed for a lot of reasons, not just him getting out of Miami to save his career, the last hope of saving his career, but maybe going to Indy. That'd be the dream scenario there. But then Cedric Wilson go right back into that. At that point, he'd kind of be an outside receiver because you got 2 slot guys in there. Jalen Waddle, I think, can man the outside a little better. But I mean, regardless, I mean, you got 3 guys with even Cedric Wilson's got some pretty solid speed on him. So that's kind of the hope.
And like running back too, Chase Edmonds, he's a pretty quick guy too. So it's like they just got speed all around. Yeah, Mostert, yeah. But yeah, talking about like the going to Colts, here is let me get the focus.
There we go.
Yeah, here's Austin's edit of him going to the Colts, which would be nice because we would like him on the Colts.
Yes, we would.
But yeah, hopefully he does get traded because, man, Parker is just I feel like had such bad luck in his career in Miami so far. Like he's either had bad quarterback play or he's been hurt or there's something else going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, all in all for this trade, once again, I feel like everybody is almost down tick except for Tua. Maybe a little bit of an uptick for Juju. But yeah. The last one that we're going to talk about is Robert Woods. He went to the Titans for only a 6th-round pick.
Maybe just a 6th next year.
Yeah, next year. That's true. So this is actually pretty good it's a great fit for the Titans because they're a running team. Woods is a very good run blocking wide receiver. He's still like, who knows after the ACL tear, but I still think he's going to be a good receiver. But it's just, can Ryan Tannehill do anything for him? Because like we've seen Titans do okay with AJ Brown and Corey Davis, but he hasn't really shown much outside of that 1 year.
Yeah. Tannehill's kind of been that guy that Titans fans think is the guy, but he's really, even some Titans fans are starting to finally turn on him. He really isn't that great. That 1 year, fantastic. And I mean, Ryan Tannehill was a top 10 quarterback in the league at that point. Last year just wasn't. I mean, Carson Wentz was better than Ryan Tannehill last year. Carson Wentz might have been the best quarterback in the division last year, which is saying a lot. Ryan Tannehill, if he can get back to good Ryan Tannehill, then maybe we're talking. But it seems like right now we're back to Miami Ryan Tannehill. Yeah,
no, like Tannehill was doing better when the offense was efficient. That's why you had Derrick Henry there. He's a monster running back. He's going to get a lot of yards.
Yeah.
It opens up more for the offense for the passing game. I think an underrated departure was Arthur Smith going to the Falcons. He was a good offensive coordinator for the Titans. He helped that offense quite a bit, honestly. So I think him leaving kind of hurt Tannehill in a way. But all in all, I don't love the fit for Robert Woods himself. It is a good fit because of the run, like as an NFL standpoint, but fantasy-wise, I don't really care for it too much.
Yeah. AJ Brown wasn't getting really the targets he should have been getting. Despite the injuries, he wasn't really getting the targets he should have been getting all this time anyway. I mean, Robert Woods is still a good receiver, really good receiver. It's yet to be seen what he can be after that ACL tear. And I think he should be ready by week 1, if I'm not mistaken.
I believe so.
But, if AJ Brown, who is, arguably a top 12, maybe top 15 at the absolute lowest talent at wide receiver in this league, what's Robert Woods going to do,
Right. But like on the Rams side of things, the Rams signed Allen Robinson. They still have not re-signed Odell Beckham, so we'll see what happens there. But Allen Robinson all of a sudden becomes very interesting because Cooper Kupp, obviously the wide receiver one there, he's the alpha. But like Odell, we saw him have success. We saw Van Jefferson have success last year. I think this is actually a great spot for Allen Robinson now that Robert Woods is out. Odell potentially not back. Van Jefferson's still there, but this could be the career revival for Allen Robinson.
I was just getting ready to say this is by far and away the best offense he's had in his entire career.
Best quarterback in his career.
Yeah, for sure. Blake Bortles gave him his best season, and if Blake Bortles can give him that, imagine what Matt Stafford can do. I mean, even if they get Odell back, and I think Odell's probably going to miss at least a few weeks into the season, if not like mid-season is probably when he'll return. But Allen Robinson is easily wide receiver 2 on that team, regardless if Odell's back or not. An offense with Kupp on one side, Allen Robinson on the other side, and then either Van Jefferson or OBJ in the slot, whoever it is. Cam Akers in the backfield, Darrell Henderson in the backfield, Matt Stafford under center. I mean, it's an unstoppable offense. This is Allen Robinson's best chance yet to revive his career, and I think he's got a really, really good chance of doing so.
I gotta say, I know personally I got burned by him last year. I drafted him as my wide receiver 1 in multiple leagues. It burned me, but to be quite honest, I'd be willing to take the chance on him this next year as a Rams wide receiver 2. To me, I don't know if I'd necessarily get him as a fantasy wide receiver 2, but as a flex, I'd definitely be interested in. Yeah. He's got potential to be. I don't know if I would say top 24 wide receiver, but definitely I could see him being for sure like top 30-ish receiver.
I would go so far to say top. I'd say top 20. I'd go. There. Yeah, I would go there. I think.
Well, we did see like Odell. Odell was at the end of the season there. He went off.
By the time he got in that offense and used to that offense and really getting into a rhythm, Odell was going. I think Allen Robinson with a full off season with this team, I think he doesn't need a kind of wait and see kind of thing because he's been so bad in the past. I think Allen Robinson's still a very, very talented receiver. Matt Stafford is going to elevate his game. We've been talking a lot about quarterbacks elevating receivers. Matt Stafford, another quarterback that elevates his receivers. And I think this is going to be another case.
Yeah, no, I know like Robinson himself was like talking about how like he wasn't exactly straightforward saying it, but he was like cryptically saying it. But the Bears just didn't use him last year is what it was.
Like at all.
I don't know what it was. I don't know if they're just trying to see what they had in Darnell Mooney or if it was just like Justin Fields.
That's It's that Matt Nagy offense. I mean, I don't
yeah.
as much as I love to be a homer for my Ohio State boys, I don't even think it was Justin Fields as much. And in a completely unbiased way, I don't think it was really Justin Fields' fault that nobody performed. I think it was just the offense. The offense was just awful. And I don't, unfortunately for that Bears offense, I know we're getting a little sidetracked, but unfortunately for that Bears offense, I don't think Matt Eberflus is helping that offense either.
Yeah, probably not. But like we look at his stats with Robinson, he went from 154 targets in 2019, 151 in 2020 to 66 last year. Well, I know he did miss time due to injury and stuff like that. He was not targeted the same as like what he was in the past. Just misused, as I would say.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. All in all, that is all that we had for today. I know we're running past an hour for sure. I'm not quite sure where we're at, but it's past an hour. So thank you if you are still watching this. But yeah, this Sunday again, we're going to be doing a Twitter Spaces. Be sure to check that out at the Fantasy Table. I'll be trying to keep on tweeting throughout the off season on like stuff that's going on. And yeah, next week, off season winners and losers. So yeah, you got anything else for us tonight, Austin?
That's pretty much it. Really, really excited for that Spaces on Sunday.
Oh yeah, that's going to be a fun time. Hopefully, get a bit of a crowd, talk some fantasy football.
A good turnout.
Oh yeah. But yeah, that will be all for us today, tonight, morning, whatever it is you guys are watching this. Thanks again for watching. Be sure to subscribe, like the video, comment, all that good jazz. Follow us on Twitter again at the Fantasy Table, at the Austin Isaac, at Luke Verkamp. And yeah, that'll be all. So you guys have a good day, good night, good morning, whatever it is, and we'll see you next week.